Hello everyone. The Barrens, they didn't always look the way that they do today. Once upon a time, they were described as a lush wildland, a verdant, thriving forest tended to by the Kaldori, who named it Ten Ralora, but the Sundering, it caused the land to change into what we know it as today. Not exactly a pretty place to live in, but for Chief Thrall and his newly formed horde, this would be close to the new home. In Warcraft 3, we saw them make allies with the local Bloodhoof Tauren and the Darkspear Trolls. Together, they stood side by side against the might of the Burning Legion, even going as far as allying themselves with Jaina Proudmoore and the Alliance. Their allegiance was a seed of possibility. Perhaps what they had accomplished could spread across the world, peace between the factions. That was their goal, as we saw Thrall and his people build up Orgrimmar, while Jaina and her forces, they stayed at Fedamore, and together, they tried to make it work. Now, on stream, I was recording the quest in the Barrens, and I asked what the story was like back in Classic, what the experience was like. Most of the responses that we got, that was about killing zebras and grabbing hooves. Apparently, not a major impression was left behind when it comes to the story, besides of course, the well-known chatting and trolling in the zone. It was such a massive land to quest in, that they eventually decided to split it all up, which meant that back then, you had a lot of time with the same people in the same zone, and a lot of the same questions, like, where is Mankrik's wife? Lo and behold, the BlizzCon demo of Classic, it allowed us to return to the days of old and experience firsthand what the quests were like, and the general impression that you all talked about, it seemed to be about right. I was actually very excited to go out and find Mankrik's wife, to experience the glory that this quest had, but his wife was just off the road, and Mankrik, he just bowed and told me that he understood. Not exactly a story to write home about, but still a lot of fun to get a taste of what it used to be, and I can't wait to relive more moments when Classic becomes fully available. So what exactly does the zone offer story-wise? Well, like I said, the Cataclysm, it did quite a number on the world, whereas the Sundering, it turned it from a lush forest into the barren wasteland. The Shattering, it split the land apart, creating northern and southern barrens. Mankrik is still around. The Blade Master actually retrieved the body of his beloved wife Olgra and created a monument in her honor. His hatred for the Quillboar, it still rages within his heart. They took his wife, they burned down his homestead, and no matter how many of the pigmen he kills, his hatred consumes him. So much so that he traveled to the southern barrens, where honor or glory, it means little to him. All that matters is that every Quillboar dies, by any means, at anyone's hand. We help him out with that. And perhaps another can help ease that hatred burning in his soul, as at the camp we have Makka, who asked him to sit beside her and rest. He's destroying himself, seeking an escape, not glory. He's trying to kill himself, and despite what he might think, there are still people in the world who would mourn his passing. People like Makka, who just wants the proud warrior to sit with her and forget his troubles, if only for a little while. A potential romance for good old Mankrik and these Quillboar that he's fighting so desperately, they got massive dens that they call their home. Legends say that way back when, during the War of the Ancients, which is before the Sundering, the demigod Agamaggan, he fell to the might of the Legion, and it was his blood that gave rise to these masses of thorny vines. The Quillboar, believed to be mortal offspring of the mighty god, they came to occupy these regions, and they hold them sacred. The heart of these foreign colonies that was known as the Razorfen, the great mass of Razorfen Kraul that was conquered by the old crone Charlga Razorflank. Under her rule, the shamanistic Quillboar staged attacks on rival tribes as well as the Horde villages. Some speculate that Charlga has even been negotiating with agents of the Scourge, aligning her unsuspecting tribe in the ranks of the undead for some insidious purpose. She was the one who told her people that Agamaggan would rise once again with blood and sacrifices. She urged them on to take the land, and when all belongs to the Quillboar, they would be delivered and Agamaggan would rise again. Naturally, we saw heroes rise up to take care of this threat, and within Razorfen Kraul, they actually come across the spirit of the demigod. Agamaggan, he might be the only one capable of steering the Quillboar towards the noble roots. Charlga Razorflank has steered her children into darkness, driving them into insanity by the Scourge. We slay her and claim her foul heart. Perhaps in time, his kids will be able to earn his favor once more. Crafted from the same mighty vines as Razorfen Kraul, we have Razorfen Downs, the traditional capital city of the Quillboar race. The sprawling, thorn-ridden labyrinth, it houses a veritable army of loyal Quillboar, as well as the High Priest, the Death's Head tribe. Recently, however, a looming shadow has fallen over the crude den. Agents of the Undead Scourge, led by the Lich Emnanar the Coldbringer, they've taken control over the Quillboar race and turned the Maze of Thorns into a bastion of undead might. Now the Kalimdor fight a desperate battle to reclaim the beloved city before Amnanar spreads his control across the Barrens. Here too we went in and took care of business, yet the Lich Amnanar, he is no easy foe to defeat once and for all, especially since we never destroyed his phylactery. He was there during Warcraft 3 at Mount Hyjal. Afterwards, the Lich King instructed his servant to remain in Kalimdor and expand the Scourge's influence. This effort was then thwarted by heroes of the Horde and the Alliance, yet with the Cataclysm, once more the relative peace, it may be threatened. It's Death Speaker Blackthorn that hopes to revive this powerful Lich and renew the assault on the Barrens. With the assistance of the Red Dragon Koristraza, we make sure that that doesn't happen.
We have done it. I will take the phylactery into safekeeping. Aminar will no longer control the Kalimdor nor threaten Kalimdor.
The third and the final dungeon in the area, that would be the Wailing Caverns, one of the first signs to be had about the Emerald Nightmare. It was the Night Elf Druid Narlux that decided to venture into these underground caverns within the heart of the Barrens. Narlux believed that he could use the cave's underground springs to restore lushness and fertility to the Barrens, but to do so, it would require siphoning the energies of the fabled Emerald Dream. Those of you that play during Legion, you might be aware of the darkness that resides within the dream, which is called the Emerald Nightmare. Once connected, the darkness took hold of the druid's vision. It twisted and turned it into darkness. Soon enough, the Wailing Caverns began to change. The waters turned foul, and the once docile creatures inside, they metamorphosed into vicious, deadly predators. It is said that Narlux himself still resides somewhere inside the heart of the labyrinth, trapped beyond the edges of the Emerald Dream. Even his former acolytes have been corrupted by the Master's waking nightmare, transformed into the wicked druids of the Fang. So it was that we had to venture inside and clear it from its corruption, destroying the corrupted druids of the Fang and waking Narlux from his nightmare. To the druids, the worst and most frightening thing imaginable. There was apparently a massive murloc by the name of Mutinous the Devourer. With the ritual complete and the darkness slain, Narlux, he awoke, yet the corruption of the caverns is not easily banished. Even as far as Legion, we still hear reports of the corruption multiplying, and with Azerite popping up all across the world, the factions, they went in to explore the caverns to see if they could use the magic to their advantage. Now, despite Narlux fall into the nightmare, his efforts, they were somewhat successful, as the Barrens show more signs of lush, vibrant nature. Of course, the nightmare itself also tries to manifest a bit more, but nothing that we can't handle, and who knows what the Barrens might look like in the future. Perhaps it will even one day return to the lush forest that it was once known as. Perhaps a combination with those stragglers that we see coming with us from alternate Draenor. So we have Kalimdor, we have Emerald Nightmare, the local wildlife including harpies and centaur. They're all pretty dangerous and present within the Barrens, but these days the bigger storyline that all resolves around the Alliance and Horde conflict. Those of you that been keeping up with the series, you've seen it move from Azshara to Ashenvale to Stonetalon Mountains, all the way into the Barrens. Now this conflict, it didn't just start with the Cataclysm either. Back in Classic, Alliance and Horde were duking it out, and at Honor Stand, we're told that before the Cataclysm, in a clever ruse, the Alliance forces streamed out of Northwatch and marched up the Gold Road, besieging crossroads as dusk fell. Then, in the heart of night, they force marched southward, leaving their campfires burning behind. The meager forces at Honor Stand were caught unaware as the Alliance poured through the pass at dawn's first light. Many of the Horde's bravest warriors, they fell before their blades. The Horde then regrouped east of the pass and prepared a counterattack, but the next day, the skies reddened and the land was cleaved in two. The Alliance in their makeshift bunkers were as surprised and disorganized as the Horde from the disaster, but rather than using this perfect opportunity to attack, Warlord Gardul, he ordered that they pull back to the south to refortify. Not all of them left though, so were asked to cause a bit of mayhem, arm the prisoners and kill the guards. The captain of the place, Captain Peak, he was such a savage bastard that he kicked poor old Ultark merely for speaking out against the beating of one of the other prisoners. He kicked and kept on kicking until Ultark lost his sight. An eye for an eye, as they say. He lost his sight, we take the captain's eyes. But the two bigger bases established in the area, that would be Desolation Hold for the Horde and its counterpart, Fort Triumph for the Alliance. The faction in blue is planning to build a road from the coast straight into the heart of Kalimdor. Piece by piece, they're trying to claim more of the Barrens, more of the land that the Tauren are so familiar with. Lady Jaina Proudmoore, she might talk about peace and trying to work together, but all the same, reports show reinforcements of the Alliance coming in from Faramore. War Chief Garrosh, isn't happy with how Warlord Cardul is holding his ground against the Alliance. Regardless of those reinforcements or even the Cataclysm, it's unacceptable that they lost honor stand, not to mention the devastation at Camp Tarajo. So it was that Warlord Bloodhild was sent over to clean up the mess, and he would act very similar to Garrosh with Kromgar.
You are dismissed!
Now to mention Camp Tarajo, that's probably the most key part of the conflict in the zone, as it more often than not end up on a list of worst things that the Alliance has ever done, and with good reason. Once just a simple camp, holding its ground against the encroaching Quillboar. Later, it became a legitimate military target, as they did train hunters and warriors there. The Alliance was misinformed about Horan planning an attack, so they struck first and they razed the camp. Admittedly, it is what you might call a soft target, primarily a hunter's camp. Still though, it had been used to recruit, equip and train Horde infantry for many years. When their scouts reported that Tarajo's most dangerous units were out on the hunt, they had to act quickly. The town was sacked by removing Tarajo from the equation altogether. They confiscated their arms and destroyed its smithing facilities. The assault gave the Alliance considerable breathing room and it knocked the enemy off balance. Nonetheless, during the assault, we have General Hawthorne who gave the order to leave a gap in their lines. He did so that the civilian population could escape the fighting, and many of them did, finding refuge in the north. The survivors, the refugees of Camp Tarajo, they made their way to Camp Unafe or Vendetta Point, either to heal and find their loved ones again, or to claim bloody revenge. Despite wanting to give the civilians a chance to escape, some didn't, and even those who were able to leave, they found themselves facing the dangers of the Barrens. Quillboars are no joke to deal with, and they can smell weakness, taking advantage of the situation by capturing or murdering the refugees. Some of their bodies have been devoured by the local wildlife, and if you scout out the ruins of Camp Tarajo, you can find looters scouring it, searching for any valuables that may have been left behind. Hawthorne explains that those looters, they're men that broke ranks after their victory. They're non-violent criminals from the Saccades that were conscripted into service. This is a breakdown of discipline. Worse is the desecration of the Tarn home, and it only spurs the enemy to fight harder when the ultimate goal should be peace. So it is that the Alliance themselves also take care of these looters, but the damage is already done. Now known as the Butcher of Tarajo, Hawthorne has become a prime target for the Horde, and when they uncover that he is on the move, they quickly strike. His body will string from the trees and left swinging in the wind for the Alliance to discover, but the humans, they were not the only ones on the assault against Tarajo and the Tauren. The dwarves at Bielmodan killed many of ours, so we will kill many of them. During the last raid, they were able to snuggle a Goblin Saboteur into the fortress. The stronghold, it can only be destroyed from within, and Weasel Slipshadow, he can't do it alone. We meet up with a Goblin, who has found the perfect cheesy disguise. By sabotaging one of the artillery shells, we can blow this whole place sky high from within. Tarajo and its Tauren people have been avenged, but you might have noticed that little plane in the cutscene that goes down with the explosion. It's actually part of the Alliance experience in the zone. They have found the body of Hawthorne strung up, and now men with more hatred in their hearts, they're the ones leading the troops. No longer will civilians be allowed to escape. No longer will they try and work towards that ultimate goal of peace. A retaliatory massacre of biblical proportions is in order. Raiders are slain and hills are claimed, until their journey takes them to meet up with Marley Twinbraid at the Bielmodan excavation site. The keep was once next to a village of the Stone-Spire Tauren, but conflicts between the dwarves and the Tauren, caused by the dwarves using explosives to excavate the land, and land was considered holy by the Tauren. All of this resulted in most of the Stone-Spire tribes to be killed off or driven off their ancestral lands. Their old village is now torn apart by dwarven digging machines. Apparently, they're excavating some kind of ancient heightened facility, but what they found put the fright in some of the excavators. Turn away. Before the cataclysm hit, we found something. We dug something up that should have stayed buried. Pray to whatever you believe in that the landslide was enough to keep it down. Who knows what foul darkness they might have unearthed. It would be the first time that the dwarves do so, digging up things best left forgotten, like the Tear of the Moons. This stone has made Figli the Exiled go quite insane. You remember Gollum from Lord of the Rings? Yeah, it's kinda like that. When he got his hands on the stone, a terrible curse was placed upon the dwarf, which turned him into a trog. And on top of that, it also gave him the ability to spread that curse and turn the others into trogs. His madness forces us to take him out, as well as the Tarn raiders in the area. Now with the dig site under control, we join Marley Twinbraid en route to the keep, just as the Horde does its thing and it blows up. Miraculously, Marley survives just long enough for us to grab him a mug of old Barker Stout. One last drink before he takes his final breath. Someone will have to tell General Twinbraid that the Horde has killed his only son, a heavy task that falls upon our shoulders. The Horde has now made it personal. Beldoon in ruins, corpses everywhere. Goblins are going to die, and we're the ones who get the pleasure to do so. Hawthorne is dead. His son is murdered. The situation in the Barrens, it's out of control. General Twinbraid will take charge of Fort Triumph and try to lock things down. To do that, he is going to need reinforcements though. Reinforcements that were promised from Fedamore weeks ago, yet still haven't arrived. That's where our journey could take us next. But the story of the Barrens, that goes beyond the Cataclysm, beyond to what we just see in game. As you can tell, Fedamore is a prime access port for the Alliance to step into Horde lands, and War Chief Gerard's Hellscream, he made his plans to put a stop to that. The Horde forces were rallied and prepared for war, prepared to march upon Fedamore. After gathering in the Goblin Port of Wretched, the Horde forces, they moved to take Northwatch hold. With the use of dark shamans, the elements themselves forced to obey, they decimated the Alliance forces. Those that survived, they fled to Fort Triumph, which was also unable to hold its ground. Nothing seemed to be able to stop the march of the Horde, but Alliance forces, they were rallied to defend Fedamore. A mana bomb put a stop to their resistance. Many lost their lives that day, and Fedamore was no more. All the same, the Alliance forces regrouped, and together with Jaina, they were eventually able to reclaim Northwatch Hold and push Garrosh into retreat. The war chief would eventually find his own horde rising up against him. They did not agree with the actions taken, which led to Vol'jin stepping up as war chief and then followed by Sylvanas. With Battle for Azeroth, the conflict between the Alliance and Horde has flared up once again. While heroes are busy in Kaltiris and Zandalar, champions are sent out to take care of business back home. In the Barrens, we see the Horde investigating the magics of the Wailing Caverns, which might be useful for the cause. Northwatch Hold, it relies on superior firepower to keep a force at bay, so we install Goblin Azerite cannons on the northern shore of the Great Divide. There's usable salvage within the battle scar of the Southern Barrens we recover, while we also make sure to avoid the dwarves of Biel Modan. The Alliance is using Biel Modan as a staging point against Mulgore, something that we can't allow to happen, so we purge the armies from the Barrens. They cannot hold on or stand without supplies, so a siege is in order to starve them out, while Camp Darajo, that is lain in ruins for far long enough. Our warriors are sent against the Alliance soldiers who seize the Great Gate, and there are apparently still looters out and about. They're also punished. Meanwhile, the Steam Widow cartel will not openly declare for the Horde, yet it still provides a vital stream of supplies. We must prevent the Alliance from discovering these smuggling operations. Meanwhile, the Alliance also sends out their troops to cause some havoc in the Barrens. Fort Triumph is re-established, and support is sent to Biel Modan as well as Northwatch Hold. Tarn Warbraves are trying to move through Thunderbluff, so they hold them at the gate. The crossroads are vital for Horde troops movement, so it's captured for the Alliance. Hunter's Hill is also taken to control the passage between the Barrens and Stonetalon, and while Wretched, it may play at neutrality during peace, they're well aware that it serves the Horde in war. The magics of the Wailing Caverns, it also calls to the Alliance to investigate. All in all, looking at the story of the Barrens, we can safely say that this is a zone of constant conflict. Not surprising, as the founding of Durotar, with Thrall and Jaina trying to make it work between the Alliance and the Horde, that often came with opposition, events of the past prevented the world from moving forward. I really wonder if they'll remember and use those stragglers that came with us from Alt and Draenor to help and transform the land once again. But I honestly think I've been going on for long enough, and hopefully you now have a better understanding of the story within the Barrens. For next time, I think it's actually a good idea to talk about the story of Darkshore, the questing experience there, seeing what the next patch is going to bring. But if you think that you have a better suggestion or one for the one after that, by all means, let me know in the comments down below. As always, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Subscribe if you like my videos, leave a like if you enjoyed this one, and until next time, guys, see ya!